be at the halfway point of voting when the clock strikes 8 p.m. here in Paris, which is just in a few seconds' time. You're watching France 24. Emmanuel Macron re-elected president of France.
Emmanuel Macron, 58.2%. Marine Le Pen, 41.8%. Emmanuel Macron made history in 2017 by becoming the youngest president ever elected. He makes history again tonight by being the first president re-elected with a sitting majority in parliament. The margin is smaller than 5 years ago when he won 2/3 of the vote versus 1/3 for Marine Le Pen, but this is still a major victory for the president. Obviously, as we've discussed before, his presidency will now hinge on whether he can obtain a majority in the legislative elections scheduled in June. This is what he did in 2017. It will be really key for him to be able to do that again this year, but a clear victory for Emmanuel Macron tonight.
A clear victory for Emmanuel Macron tonight, and you're watching live scenes from the foot of the Eiffel Tower. As Marc was saying, Macron, the first president to be re-elected in 2 decades. France 24's Delano de Souza is in the crowd. Delano.
A lot of cheering, very happy people here. Clearly that Emmanuel Macron has secured a second term in office. He has become the fourth president in the history of the Fifth Republic to secure that second term in office. I'm here with one of Emmanuel Macron's supporters, Fabrice.
Yeah, hello.
How are you feeling?
Very happy today. We won. We have a good president for 5 more years. So I guess it's a good chance for France.
Do you think Emmanuel Macron will succeed in convincing people who voted for the extreme right and the extreme left in the first round that he is going to be the president for all of France? That's going to be a challenge for him.
Yeah, I think, because, he cannot be elected anymore. So he has 5 years to convince and to, like a team, to work with everybody. Because now he won't think anymore for a re-election. So he has 5 years to do what he wants to do, really now.
But he has to think about the future of his party.
Sorry?
He has to think about the future of La République En Marche.
Yes, but step by step, Okay. Step by step, yeah.
And are you going to wait till the president speaks later tonight?
Yes, maybe he's come in 1 hour, maybe. He'll be coming in 1 hour, and it's going to be a big feast. Everybody's happy now tonight.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you. There you hear it. So another one of Emmanuel Macron's supporters. The crowd here is going to stay late into the night. I assume it's going to be pretty festive as the night continues, and when we will be expected to hear from Emmanuel Macron, who will be speaking here just under the Eiffel Tower in about an hour or so.
58.2% is our initial Ipsos estimate. Delano de Souza at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, where Emmanuel Macron will speak when he leaves the Élysée Palace to make his way from the right bank to the left bank of the Seine for what will be, Marc Perelman, a victory speech.
Yes, a victory speech, a concession speech will be given, however, by Marine Le Pen. And we can now cross to Florence Villeminot, who is at Marine Le Pen's headquarters in Western Paris. Florence, the mood, I imagine, a bit sad around you.
Absolutely. Lots of long faces at the Rassemblement National's party here. You could see behind me the screens. A big crowd of supporters had gotten there right as that countdown happened. They counted down 10, 9, 8, and then when the result came in that Emmanuel Macron had won big gasp in the crowd, and then boos when that final result came on up. But then I just spoke to some of the supporters behind me. They say, look, it's progress compared to 2017. Marine Le Pen did better in the second round. So they say this is progress for Marine Le Pen. And now, of course, we're going to be waiting for Marine Le Pen to come down and give her concession speech. And there are going to be many questions that are up for, we need to know what's next for Marine Le Pen. She said this was going to be her last run for president. What's going to be next for her in her political career? What's going to be next for the party, of course, because the next big elections are going to be the parliamentary elections in June. Everyone has their eyes set on that because currently the Rassemblement National has just a handful of MPs within the 577 MPs in the French lower house of parliament. And a lot of people here say it's high time that there was better representation for the party in parliament. So everyone's eyes are now turned. Once they lick their wounds, of course, all eyes will be turned to the next step, which is going to be those parliamentary elections. Will there be some sort of an alliance with Éric Zemmour, the other far-right candidate? If you look at the results of the first round, the far right between the Rassemblement National and Éric Zemmour represents 30% of the vote. That's huge. And so those are the questions that are going to be next for the Rassemblement National. And Marine Le Pen as well, what is her plan for the party? She managed to bring it from the fringe into the mainstream. Is she going to have some sort of a supportive role for the party? Will she run again, even though she said she hasn't? All these questions are things that we're going to be looking out for when Marine Le Pen gives her concession speech. But right now, lots of long faces here at the Rassemblement National. There is an open bar, so I imagine some people will be drowning their sorrows in that open bar while we wait for Marine Le Pen to come and speak.
Florence Villeminot, thank you very much. Marine Le Pen scoring 41.8% of the votes, according to our estimates. That's 7 points more than 5 years ago, but still not enough to win the presidency, François.
All right, and with us in this hour after that result, Léa Chamboncel, host of the Popol Politics podcast. Welcome back. We also want to welcome back, you were with us for the first round, Member of Parliament Jean-Noël Barrot of Emmanuel Macron's La République En Marche party, and Martina Gabelica, representative of the youth wing of the National Rally in the eastern and southeastern suburbs of Paris. Thanks for being with us. A lot of young voters went for your candidate. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's go around the room for a quick reaction. Jean-Noël Barrot, 58.2%. Is that a mandate?
Well, first, it's a very clear victory. It's also historical because none of the previous presidents under the Fifth Republic had been re-elected after being in charge, and so it's very meaningful that Emmanuel Macron would have. No, under sharing government.
He didn't have the majority in Parliament.
No, it's the first time it ever happened.
With a sitting majority, it's the first time.
Exactly, of course, and that's historical. And the second thing is that we are grateful, obviously, to the people that have voted for Emmanuel Macron, but we also want to say tonight to all of those that have not voted for Emmanuel Macron that they've been heard and that they will be called to participate because Emmanuel Macron has said that he wants to change the way he governs and call every citizen that is willing to participate in public policy making to do so. And the last thing is that abstention is a bit higher than it was last time, which calls for major democratic reform, which is what we intend to do in the next 5 years.
Martina, before we turn to Martina Gabelica, 4 in 10 voters choosing the far right. That's also historic.
Yes, it's a very high score. It is meaningful as well, and it means that we need to provide concrete answers to what they are longing for, and that will be what we'll be working on in the next coming months.
Martina Gabelica, well, what's your take? I mean, this is a disappointment for Marine Le Pen. She hoped really to win, or do you say it's much better than last time? So,
well, of course, it's much better than last time. It's much better than in 2017. We show through the results that people are coming to us more and more because there are more and more people disappointed of the politics, actually. They chose Emmanuel Macron. I'm personally disappointed. I think that everyone...
You thought Marine Le Pen could really win?
Yes, we thought. We thought because Emmanuel Macron just fought us for 5 years. He just beat us for 5 years. He distracted the country for 5 years. So people want to keep going that. There's no problem. I'm just listening my colleague on the other side of the table, and I hope that you're right and that he's really going to change, because it's really crazy that in a country nowadays, when people go out in the streets and say that things are going not well, that the only answer of that president is to fight us, to say us, send us the cops with weapons. I hope that he's going to change on that, and that's not going to happen again.
Well, apparently, what Marine Le Pen was proposing was not enough to convince them that it was worth the change. And I really believe that some of the proposals that Emmanuel Macron has made during this campaign sort of met some of the expectations of the French people, and that, on the other hand, the extreme right was not wanted by a majority of the French citizens. And so it doesn't mean that as an elected or newly re-elected president, you don't take into account what the voters have had to say. But I don't think that, and we don't think that the proposals that Marine Le Pen were making were good enough to meet a majority of French people and their expectations.
Léa Chamboncel, 58.2%. Again, that's the number we're watching here. 10 minutes ago, we had the result. Is it good or bad for the incumbent? Is it good or bad for Marine Le Pen?
It's not as good as 2017, obviously, for Emmanuel Macron. And it's better for Marine Le Pen. But I think what we should look up is the potential consequences of these results, on the fact, on the one hand, that Marine Le Pen loses for the first time the presidential elections. And this could definitely trigger some changes in the National Rally political party, and perhaps they will try to think about a new leader, or see how they can get closer to Éric Zemmour and her niece that left her party as well. As for Emmanuel Macron, I think the consequences is also a warning. It's a warning to say, well, obviously what you have been doing did actually meet some agreements, and some voters voted for him and fully convinced of the fact that they wanted him to be president again. But we need to remember also that a lot of voters been, again, voting against someone and not for him. So I hope when we will be listening to his speech
I'm going to interrupt you because
right
we're going to
now,
listen to
Sure.
the loser, Marine Le Pen, who is about set to make her a concession speech, and we can hear the applause from her supporters. This is in the west of Paris as she gets ready to address her supporters.
Mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen,
un grand vent de liberté aurait pu se lever sur le pays.
we could have seen a great wind of freedom sweeping across this country, but the people of France decided it to be otherwise. We have seen unfair, violent practices, the sorts of practices that the French citizens are subjected to day in, day out. We've seen We've seen that throughout France. And when we look at the results of tonight's election, we can see that we have nevertheless been victorious. Millions of our fellow citizens chose to vote for our party. I would like to show my deepest recognition to all of those people. Those are people who voted for us in the first round and the millions who voted for us in the second. My deep gratitude goes to all of those men, women, from the rural regions, from the overseas territories as well, those people who voted for me so overwhelmingly for this second round. I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that show of support, because that is the side of France that is so far too often forgotten, but we will never forget it. We will continue to defend the citizens of France now more than ever before. And I have no feeling of of shame or regret, because I would like to say to all those who wanted to see our party disappear, I would just like to say that I see a new form of hope. Because the results that we have, it shows that in France and in Europe, that the leaders in France and Europe are going to have to face a sense of great mistrust from the people. There are great winds of change afoot. What we show is that we can stand up as a power to counterbalance that shown by Emmanuel Macron and his party. We will be there to protect men and women in France, to ensure that they have purchasing power, to ensure that we have strong social security systems, strong public institutions. We will be able to stand up against the retirement reform that Macron wants to bring in. Tonight, what I fear is that the coming 5 years will be one with the same sort of disregard that we have seen over the past 5 years. That Macron will further create division within our country as opposed to closing down those gaps. Because instead of having the power in the hands of few, I will fight to bring power to the hands of the French people. I will do so with steadfast determination that you have seen me put into motion these past few years. Following this campaign, we see that the great political stage that we have been operating on is undergoing great change. With the self-proclaimed elite of Macron's political parties, they are now going to have to face up against true opposition, because in a few weeks' time, we will face the legislative elections, and we will be there. Again, with the legislative process, the legislative election process, we only know that the powers are going to maintain that power. So what we want is we want to find change to the system, because all we can see in Macron's campaign is that he will destroy France, he will break down France, he will break down its institutions. So these are people, there are people who voted Macron in a second time. And yet, we are a party that will take your interests at heart and we will defend your interests. So therefore, we will see you for the next battle, the next electoral battle for the legislative elections. And this is a battle that I will fight with Jordan Bardella. All those who were so brave enough to stand up against Macron in the second round, with all those men and women who believe in our nation. We will strive to unite all those people from whatever their background, those people who wish to rally together to stand up against Macron. Those people who wish to have candidates in their local communities, be they in France, be they across over the seas, in our overseas territories, wherever they may be. We will be there, and I call on you all to vote for them, vote for the National Rally. Because remember, when we look at the polls, when we look at the figures, nothing is written in stone. We can change the future. Because our party is ready and we are going to win numerous seats in the parliament. And we will serve you because we serve a great ambition, the only true ambition. That is that France is our true ambition. So tonight, I will say once again, I will never leave the French people to the wayside. Long live the French Republic, long live France.
Allons, enfants.
We just heard the concession speech from Marine Le Pen, who came up short once again in this presidential election. She said, however, that it was a great victory for the national rally, that she would continue to carry the torch for the party. And she immediately said that the next objective was to win many seats in the upcoming legislative elections. She said we cannot allow Emmanuel Macron free reign for the next 5 years. So clearly, Marine Le Pen showing that she is not ready to leave the stage. She didn't speak about her future, but clearly she wants the national rally to continue and to score major victories in the near future. We can now cross to Florence Villeminot, who is at the Marine Le Pen headquarters and just listened to this concession speech. Florence.
That's right, Mark. You might be able to see right behind me, Marine Le Pen is just leaving the stage after that concession speech that came very shortly after those results came in. That very defiant speech from Marine Le Pen saying there could have been a wind of freedom over France. It wasn't for them tonight. She respects the results tonight. She said a special thank you to all the people in rural France and in overseas territories who overwhelmingly showed her their support in this second round of the election. She said, and you just said it there, that the result tonight is a great victory, even if it wasn't enough to win the second round tonight. She said there are no regrets, no bad feelings, and she said she was very defiant with respect to Emmanuel Macron, and the next step, she said, are those parliamentary elections in June. Now, she lashed out against the current system in France. It's a two-round system for those parliamentary elections, which has often meant that the far right, the national, doesn't really manage to get that many MPs. But that's going to be her next fight. And she also said her fight isn't over for the Rassemblement National. What does that mean? It's not clear, but she's still in the fight.
Interrupt you, Florence. Sorry to interrupt you, but the man who came in third in the first round of the election, Jean-Luc Melenchon, is speaking right now. Let's listen in.
Ladies and gentlemen, after the second round of elections between Madame Le Pen and Mr. Macron, barely 1/3 of the people on the list voted. But the decision has been made, and once again, Mrs. Le Pen has been beaten. France clearly refused to allow its future be controlled by her, and that is excellent news for the unity of our people. Now, we have Mr. Macron, who received the least popular support in the history of the Fifth Republic. His presidency has survived as a decision by default and through forced hands. He is treading water in an ocean of abstention voting and protest voting. My thoughts go to the future victims of this situation, people on financial support who are going to have to work for free for 20 hours every week, people who will be able to retire 3 years later than they thought, people who are struggling to make ends meet and who will not see price control implemented. People who know just how damaging and how criminal ecological inaction can and has been. And the people who look on sadly as the country is stripped for parts and sold. To each and every one of you, I tell you, do not give up. On the contrary, now is the time to act. Now is the time to act together, strongly. Democracy can once again give us the means to change our destiny. The third round of the election starts tonight. On the 12th and 19th of June, we will have the legislative elections in France. Here, you can defeat Mr. Macron and choose another path. On the 12th and the 19th, a new world is still possible to achieve if you elect a majority, and mark my words, a majority of MPs from the new popular union which is set to grow. The popular political bloc, as we call it, based around my own presidential run, is, in this country right now, the third party, the kingmaker that can change everything if we come together and grow. On the 12th and the 19th of June, calling on you to elect me as Prime Minister, basically what I'm asking you to do is to open up a new, bright future for our people. Be strong, act, be determined, throw off the yoke of destiny, never give up. Long live France, long live the Republic. Thank you.
The leader of the third place finisher in the first round, Jean-Luc Melenchon of the left, giving a speech there effectively at 8:25 p.m., 25 minutes after the result, kicking off his campaign for the legislative elections, calling on voters to be his prime minister. Lots to unpack, and I want to begin, if I may, Martina Gabelica, with one line we heard in Marine Le Pen's concession speech. She said, there are people who helped to re-elect Macron. And who is she talking about there?
Well, I think that she's actually talking about every person who let him came back on the lead of the France, every person who gave him, like, the opportunity to do it. I'm looking just at what Jean-Luc Mélenchon said, and, like, it makes me a little click, because he spent all of his campaign being against Emmanuel Macron, saying that he was the destructor of our country, which is actually true. But now he wants to work with him, he wants to be his prime minister. I think that he's one of those, actually. He's one of those who just forgot that we are fighting not for a position, not for just some seat in the parliament, but actually for the France. And I hope really that there will still be something to save in 2027.
Do you think Marine Le Pen gave the impression that she was not quitting politics? She said, I want to lead to the legislative elections, a little bit like Jean-Luc Mélenchon. They both said this would be our last campaign. It seems she's not about to...
Our fight has always been to protect French people and to save France from the hands of people like Emmanuel Macron. So this is a win, actually, for us.
Right, but the question is, Marine Le Pen, is she the one to lead the party now over the next 5 years?
I don't know. I'm not her. But I know from the word of every person like me who is working with the Rassemblement National that we're not going to give up. We're not going to let go. We're going to keep fighting, and we're going to be there to watch what Emmanuel Macron does, because he said so many things during this campaign, and we'll see if he's going to keep his word or not.
Jean-Noël Barrot, the campaign is on now. You're running for re-election.
So maybe just a word about Jean-Luc Mélenchon. If Jean-Luc Mélenchon and obviously some of his voters in the first round decided to go for Emmanuel Macron, even though they were opponents to the politics that we've undertaken over the past 5 years, rather than going for Marine Le Pen, it's simply because they think that Marine Le Pen would be much worse than Emmanuel Macron. And that's the reason why.
Or is it because he's courting socialists and Green Party voters who decided to vote for him in the first round?
But the socialist candidate, the Green candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the communist candidate, the right-wing candidate, they all said that even though they were opponents to Emmanuel Macron, that they would clearly vote for Emmanuel Macron because Marine Le Pen, what Marine Le Pen is proposing was much worse. And then, let me just say, because I hear among some of the observations tonight that this might be not such a victory. Again, I said you need to take these results with some humility and hear what the people have said when they voted. But again, Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, Nicolas Sarkozy, François Hollande, even though he was not a candidate, they failed to be re-elected. So it's really meaningful that Emmanuel Macron was re-elected. It means that somehow, even though he did not solve every problem in France, that it somehow provided a number of answers to what people were waiting for a long time.
But does he get a majority now? Because last time it flowed, you know, there was the energy, the momentum of the presidential victory. Now things are very, very different. And you heard Marine Le Pen, you heard Jean-Luc Melenchon. They're out to get him, and so it means it's going to be much more difficult.
Of course, so we are step by step, as one of the person on the Eiffel Tower was saying earlier, but we are going to work hard to give Emmanuel Macron a majority so that he can basically govern. So it's going to be a battle. But we're ready for it, and I think that the French people will care about the idea that now that they've elected a French president, re-elected Emmanuel Macron, that they also need to be consistent and to provide a majority for him.
Léa Chamboncel, again, we heard Jean-Luc Mélenchon mention that this was the worst elected president, which is not true, in fact, because, well, we've had much tighter races in the past.
Mitterrand was elected at 55.
Closest is 1974. It was less than 2 points the margin. First of all, the speech by Marine Le Pen, were you surprised by her tone? What struck you?
No, not much. What struck me is that she believes that they can have more seats at the parliament, and I doubt it, honestly. I doubt it for...
It's not that difficult. They have 7. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's they don't have a group, a parliamentary group, so they don't have much powers. To have a group, you need 15 MPs, which they don't. And I doubt that they can do better than they did in 2017. But let's have a look closely in June at what's going to happen. For 2 reasons. First of all, because the presidential election is dramatically different from the legislative election. We saw that the abstention on this year for this second round it's higher than 2017. Just as a reminder, for the legislative elections on the second round in 2017, it was over 56%. So if we believe that there is more abstention in the second round, in the first and second round of legislative elections, maybe that won't be... Well, they don't have the opportunity, the ability of galvanizing the voters as they do for the presidential election.
Right,
so I doubt that they will have more seats. It's also it's the same situation for Jean-Luc Mélenchon. This is his strategy since the first round, saying, oh, there is a third round and you need to elect me prime minister, which is quite shocking to elect me prime minister, because the prime minister is appointed by the president as the results of the...
Of course, if he had a majority of votes.
The majority of vote, obviously, but yeah. It's interesting. The language, the vocabulary that's used is actually interesting. And the thing is that we don't know if they're going to do better than they did in 2017, because I doubt that people will be very galvanized by these upcoming elections.
You're watching France 24. It is election night. Emmanuel Macron re-elected with 58.2% according to our exclusive Ipsos estimate. And as the night grows old, that estimate will become a firm result as we continue to watch the results come in from polling stations across the country.
Yes, and we're heading back to Marine Le Pen's headquarters. In the middle of the crowd, Alison Sargent is with militants. They must be pretty disappointed, or maybe they think it was an honorable result.
Well, we can ask them, Marc. We've moved out to the terrace to get a little bit of air. I'm here with 2 of Marine Le Pen's supporters, Dominique and Rami. And how are the 2 of you feeling about these results?
I'm feeling bad, of course, because we lost. But we are so motivated to coming. And the next view is, of course, the legislative race. And we are happy to fighting again and again for the national ideas. We continued to fight, and we thankfully all the French citizens we vote to him in this day.
And Dominique, what about you? How are we feeling about the results?
Still serene, as I was before.
You were expecting this?
Expecting? No, I was not expecting a defeat, of course not. No, but well. That would be hard if we hadn't fought, but we fought. We did our best, and Marine Marine gave everything, I think. She spoke well, of course. But I already told you she speaks well. I would like her to now to act. Well, she cannot.
And Dominique,
that's the majority. So I don't have problems. I think the problem would be if we hadn't done our best to offer this option. Well, it's a change in society, and well, the majority did not.
Wanted to stay the same. And we were talking earlier, Dominique, about how you're feeling about Macron's presidency. Can you both tell me how you're feeling about the next 5 years?
Well, we can still do something. The RN people. Now he would be around 57%, so it's not the 66 of 2017.
So you have hope for the legislatives?
So yes, now we can work on some influence, in Parliament, yes.
And Rami, how do you feel about Emmanuel Macron as a president?
What I feel, I accept, of course, the choice of the French citizens. Okay, I thankfully all the French citizens to vote today. Of course, I scare about the 5 years we will going because if the last 5 years is very difficult for the French citizens, and I hope, of course, the best for the all French citizens, but I scare, in my opinions, for the futures because it's very difficult and we live at difficult times.
So there we have it, I guess.
I said exactly the same about a difficult time. You know, we didn't know one another, Rami and I, and yes, we already lived difficult times, and with the same persons, we'll have the same hard time.
Yeah, fighting into the legislative. So there we have it. A little bit of disappointment, but resigned and looking ahead, proud of how they fought and ready for those legislative elections.
Alison, Sargent on the terrace of the Pavillon d'Armenonville with some militants of the National Rally, some of them having a drink, maybe because they're sad or maybe because they think they have a future.
Lots of talk about the bar at the Le Pen headquarters this evening. I've noticed it's been a thread throughout the evening. It's time to cross to Dheepthika Laurent, who is at the board, crunching the numbers for us throughout the night. We heard the leader of the left on France 24 a short while ago, Jean-Luc Melenchon, say, "Make me your prime minister." Now, and as you heard those supporters of Marine Le Pen say, they're looking ahead to parliamentary elections. What do exit polls tell us?
Well, François, we really have seen how these French presidential elections have redrawn the political landscape in France. Have a look at this. Gone are the traditional right-wing and left-wing parties, at least for the moment. These are the three major parties in France. You have Emmanuel Macron's centrist party, you have Marine Le Pen's far-right party, and you have Jean-Luc Mélenchon's far-left party. Now, what's clear is that Emmanuel Macron now, with his 58% or so a majority, will find it very hard to govern without a majority in Parliament, something that we've been talking about a lot this evening. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is where this man comes in. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, he came third in the French presidential elections, and he's already looking ahead to those parliamentary elections in June. And when you look at the kind of people who are voting for him, well, that's where it gets really interesting. Have a look at this. Jean-Luc Mélenchon's voters are very varied. Sure, he's very popular among young people, but he's also got quite a bit of support in the 50 to 70 age bracket. When it comes to education, 43% of people who support Jean-Luc Mélenchon are college graduates, but it's pretty spread across the three brackets. And finally, when it comes to income, bearing in mind that 2,000 euros as a monthly income is roughly considered the median income here in France, well, that's pretty widespread. He's very popular with the low to mid-income earners, but he's also got almost 40% support in mid to top level income earners as well. And this is really interesting now because we're looking ahead to those parliamentary elections. And one thing that's really interesting is that our polling partners, Ipsos, have been asking Mélenchon voters the reason they voted for Emmanuel Macron. And look at this figure here. 91% said they voted principally to prevent Marine Le Pen from winning in this second round. This was not a vote of conviction, clearly. And this is why Emmanuel Macron this is why Jean-Luc Melenchon rather senses this opportunity ahead of the parliamentary elections. He's already calling on his voters to help elect him prime minister in those parliamentary elections, because what could happen is Emmanuel Macron could find himself without a parliamentary majority, being forced really to share power with a prime minister from another party. And indeed, this seems something that Melenchon's voters certainly want. Around 56% of French voters say they want Emmanuel Macron's party to lose the parliamentary elections and be forced into this power-sharing agreement with another party. Of this 56%, 84% were Melenchon voters. So you really do see where Jean-Luc Melenchon's voters are going and what they want ahead of these parliamentary elections. François.
Dheepthika Laurent, many thanks.
We can now cross to Saint-Denis. Wassim Cornet is spending the night with sympathizers of Jean-Luc Melenchon. Wassim, I believe you have a guest.
Yeah, good evening, Marc. We are with a lot of people, a lot of young voters who are part of that an organization called Get Up. And just like the most residents of this wider Seine-Saint-Denis department, a lot of them voted for Jean-Luc Melenchon. We did hear an audible sigh of relief when the face of Emmanuel Macron showed up on screen at 8 o'clock showing the results. Some people telling us that they did not expect to see the far right getting that many votes, and some people saying they were expecting the result to be a lot closer. I'm with a young voter. Note to our viewers, I'll be carrying out the conversation in French, and I'll let our translators back in the newsroom work their magic in English. Bonsoir, Célia. Vous avez
Good evening, Célia. So you voted for Emmanuel Macron.
Macron a été réélu, donc.
Macron won the second round. The far right won't be in the presidential palace for the next 5 years. Is that a mission accomplished? Well, mission accomplished? I really wouldn't say that, because I didn't vote for Macron. I voted against Le Pen. Because I don't believe in President Macron's program or platform 100%. So it's a victory for want of a better word. But really, I am still quite concerned with Marine Le Pen, because she won 10 points compared to last election. So it is somewhat of a victory, but really it's
Quand on a reçu les chiffres de l'Institut Ipsos, quand on additionne
so when we look at the figures from Ipsos with the abstention votes, roughly 35% of people didn't turn out. So what does that mean? Well, it's pretty much the same as what we saw 5 years ago, and I really think it represents the fact that people don't believe in the system. There's a lack of trust, and people in France, they don't believe in the presidential candidates anymore. And I think that's a way of showing that we disagree with the system, simply because the candidates don't really represent us, and they don't really protect our interests.
So there you have it, a general impression of, again, a sigh of relief, but obviously people here are not thrilled with that final result, the re-election of Emmanuel Macron.
Wassim Cornet in Saint-Denis, thank you very much.
All right, let's cross now over to Delano de Souza, who is at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. On the winning side, with the supporters of Emmanuel Macron, we have no news yet, Delano, of the incumbent leaving the Élysée Palace to make his way where you are for his victory speech. Now, there's a lot of talk on this set here about legislative elections. We're still in the presidential election where you are. A presidential election is a popularity contest, and where you're with people who support the incumbent.
Indeed, a popularity contest that Emmanuel Macron has won today. He secured his second term in office, but we have to look forward to those legislative elections, because not everyone who voted for Emmanuel Macron today will necessarily support him in those parliamentary elections here in France, because Jean-Luc Melenchon fared so well during the first round of the vote. We could see a lot of people vote towards the left, so Emmanuel Macron won't have a free hand, so to speak. I'm here with some supporters, an elderly couple who've actually come out in support of Emmanuel Macron. Good evening.
Yes.
How are you feeling today?
I'm very happy for me.
Very happy?
Yes, very, very happy with my wife. We are tonight, and they support Macron. Macron is a man for peace, and he has for Europe, Union of Europe, and also he has not for extreme down, and not for discrimination. Me, I am support.
Do you think Emmanuel Macron can unite the country now? Do you think Emmanuel Macron can unite the country?
I don't answer.
Do you think Emmanuel Macron can unite the country?
Unite this country?
Unite the country.
Yes.
He can.
Yes. It's very, very. For me, it's for union for all for two people who live in Paris and France and all the country.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is my wife also. He think the same. My wife also and me, we support Macron for us.
Thank you very much. The atmosphere here is extremely festive. They have a DJ playing. I can barely hear you with these special headphones on, but we'll be bringing you Emmanuel Macron's speech. He's on his way here, so he will be speaking within the hour, hopefully.
Delano de Souza at the foot of the Eiffel Tower. That's the winning side, Jean-Noël Barrot. Of course, there is this stigma that Emmanuel Macron carries around with him, that's stuck. President of the rich. So can he reinvent himself in his second mandate?
No, the president of the rich is what some of our opponents have been willing to say, but what we've done has benefited a lot of the poor categories of the population of the French people, and we are going to keep doing that for more justice in France. So I think if he's re-elected, it's also that there is a sense across the country, even though there are opponents, there are different projects that have been proposed, there is a sense that he is working for more justice, for more unity, as this man at the floor, at the foot of the Eiffel Tower was saying. So, of course, it's tonight. There is a little bit of joy among the proponents of Emmanuel Macron, because there has been a lot of people working hard for this campaign to happen, and there's been a lot of support throughout the country, and until the very end, it was not clear that this would be a win. And so,
sorry to interrupt you. We're just going to cross very quickly to Florence Villeminot at Marine Le Pen's headquarters. Florence. Florence, can you hear us? You're in the middle of the crowd. We're with you.
Oh, yeah, I can hear you. I'm in the basically. Marine Le Pen is right behind me. You might see there's this huge crowd of journalists right here. I just got pushed out of the way. I'm trying to see what's happening behind me. She came down probably about 5 minutes ago to go do, I guess, kind of a lap of the room. She got close to that bar we were telling you about, and now she went a little bit to the other side of the room near the podium. Big crowd of journalists, big crowd of supporters. I can't see exactly what's happening because there's so many cameras, it must be said. But she was taking some photos, chit-chatting with supporters, and now she's going out of the room. This, of course, she came down, gave her speech, and then left that concession speech where she vowed to continue fighting for the French, and where she said that the next battle is going to be the parliamentary elections. Just what is the future for Marine Le Pen in politics? That's unclear for now, but she's certainly soaking up the attention tonight, and lots of journalists from around the world have come to report about the second round here for the Rassemblement National. It seems like she might actually be coming back in this direction as well. We'll keep following you. We'll keep following her for you, of course. If she comes back into the room, we'll let you know.
Florence Villeminot, stay safe in the middle of the crowd. Martina, I want to ask you something that Marine Le Pen has said in her speech, the problem with the electoral system for the parliamentary election. That's something that Jean-Luc Melenchon has always complained about. Emmanuel Macron said he would try to reform it because there is a problem. You have, Emmanuel Macron also said that he would appoint a commission to look at the issue. He said he couldn't make it happen. But there's a problem. There's a democratic problem in France because you have 3 blocks. We talked about it. And you have only one heavily represented in Parliament, you think that he will listen to your...
Well, I can't say anything about Emmanuel. He disappointed us so much that everything he says now...
Everyone has a second chance. No?
Well, we're waiting for it because everything he says just seems like a lie. So now you saw the polls, you heard the people. We're not listening to him. We're waiting to see what he's going to do. And that's where it's going to be hard for him because he's good to talk but not to act. Now, I hope especially that he's not going to have the majority and that things are going to change because we saw this last 5 years, that when he's alone, without any control, he does, well, crazy things. People go to on the streets, they protest, and he just fights them. So it will be good that he has a little bit of some control to first not do things so badly as he did, but also that French people have finally the feeling that they are totally represented, whether it's from my side or from the side of Jean-Luc Melenchon or even from the side of the other candidates who are less represented.
Do you want to respond? Because it's the second time she mentions violence. I mean, it's not that disagreement over policy, it's about violence.
No, so I fully agree. In fact, we've tried to push proportional voting through Congress, but the Senate has opposed the bill when it came. But I truly believe, and François Bayrou, the president of the Modem Party, of the Democratic Movement, to which I belong, has said that for a long time. If we want to have a parliament that is fully representative of all sensibilities, all views across the French nation, we need to have more proportional voting. And Emmanuel Macron has said that he is in favor of that, but that he wants to build consensus across political parties to achieve this reform. So we'll work on that, and I really hope that we can do that. And the best sort of proof that we are in favor of that is that we've pushed when there was a risk that Marine Le Pen would not get the signatures that she needed, the 500 signatures
to be on the ballot.
We've pushed so that even people that were not agreeing with Marine Le Pen could actually provide their signature, their endorsement to Marine Le Pen so that she could run. And this is really needed. We need to have a parliament that is, we need to have elections where everyone can run, and we need to have a parliament that is very representative of the diversity of the French people.
And we heard Léa Chamboncel, a term used in his speech by Jean-Luc Mélenchon. Again, we're starting to anticipate because the two rounds of elections are over and two are coming up in June with the legislative elections. He talked about being the representative of the third estate. That's language borrowed from the French Revolution. The idea that the left represents working class people. Of course, we've seen in large parts of France where it's the National Front now that gets the votes of the working classes.
Yeah, we were talking about it on the first part of the show. As I was saying earlier on, I have the impression that the main political parties of the left wing did not have the right answers to poor workers and poor people in France, and they had the feeling that they were sort of abandoned to a more, let's say, social democratic view of the Socialist Party. And it's true that for a while these electoral blocks didn't vote for the
Just going to interrupt you because we have images of the French president, the incumbent, making his way from the Élysée Palace on the right bank. He's about to cross the Alexander III Bridge across from the Invalides, making his way to the foot of the Eiffel Tower. And these are live images of Emmanuel Macron making, after winning victory some 53 minutes ago, Léa Chamboncel. What are the words that Emmanuel Macron will have to use in his speech was the question we put earlier to Martina, to unite the country?
I think it's going to be rather complicated for him because what we see is that he didn't talk to the left voters for 5 years almost, pretending that he was neither left, neither right. But what we see is that he was rather right, I would say. Also because, The former president Nicolas Sarkozy is supporting him, and I guess this is not a simple detail. I mean, it's public policy. Excuse me, let me finish, please. His public policy is rather right-wing, we can tell, also because, you know, in his government, as soon as he got into office, he got Bruno Le Maire, that is right-wing. He got Gérald Darmanin, that is also right-wing. He got Edouard Philippe, that is also right-wing. He got a lot of right-wing people in his government. So it's a signal that is rather doing a right-wing public policy, I would say. So I think it's going to be very hard for him to keep the left voters that voted for him, but by default again, for most of them. So I think if he wants and needs to change something is to try to work on these very progressist ideas that he came up with in 2017 and that seduced part of the left voters and don't seduce them anymore.
We're watching images of Emmanuel Macron's motorcade making its way through the left bank, and he's making a stop, Marc Perelman, before heading to the Eiffel Tower where that victory party is taking place. Looks like he's at the Prime Minister's office.
It looks like, yes, I think it's Matignon. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I recognize the entrance of Matignon, where the Prime Minister is. Jean Castex is his Prime Minister. Whether he will continue is a question mark.
Is the Prime Minister going to resign tonight? How does it work?
It depends. They can decide. There have been rumors that he would resign immediately. Emmanuel Macron recently said that he might continue for a few days, but obviously there are the legislative elections coming in 2 months. There'll be a change of Prime Minister definitely at that time, but we'll have to see. In the meantime, I'm just going to mention that congratulations for Emmanuel Macron have come all across Europe. The head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU Council, Charles Michel, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the Dutch Prime Minister and the Italian Prime Ministers are congratulating Emmanuel Macron for his win, saying it's a win for France. It's also a win for Europe. I imagine you are smiling.
Of course.
Why?
Because I don't think that's such a win. He spent so much time with Europe, bashing out French people's rights. He's spent his whole campaign not talking to French people, not talking to us. He hid from us, actually. He didn't make a real campaign. And he was only talking about Europe and what he's going to do for Europe. But we matter what he's going to do for France. And he's re-elected tonight, but we still don't know what he's going to do for us. We only know what he's going to do for himself and for Europe. So, well, now it is what it is. But we're counting on him to really act for once. He did not in the first 5 years. Now he has 5 years to finally do something.
58.2% of the French citizens voting for Emmanuel Macron in the second round. We saw live images there a moment ago of his finance minister, Bruno Le Maire, on the podium, waiting for the incumbent to come for his victory speech. One final question for you, Jean-Noël Barrot. Again, what are the next 6 weeks about now? What's going to be the issue?
Well, the issue is going to start the second term, and this calls for preparation of the parliamentary elections, formation of the government, and working.
But what do the French want? What do the French want from their leaders?
The French want peace. And so it means that Emmanuel Macron is going to have to keep working to try and bring peace to Ukraine, what he's been doing. And in fact, I believe that the French people have understood that Europe could be a protection for them with the vaccine, with the recovery plan, and with the sanctions against Ukraine that indeed the National Rally has not voted in favor of. But the French people know that he has a lot to do in Europe because we have war very, very close to France. And then they also are expecting that he acts strongly to protect their purchasing power. Because the inflation and increase in the energy prices call for action right now. And so he'll be working on that in the next coming weeks.
Jean-Noël Barrot, and you'll be hitting the campaign trail. I want to thank you for being with us. I want to thank as well Martina, Gabelica, Léa Chamboncel, host of the Popol Politics podcast as well, for being with us here on election night on France 24 as we count down to the 9 p.m. hour. And we saw Marc Perelman, the French president, make his way for that victory speech, a re-election speech. We haven't seen one in 2 decades.
Yes, and we haven't heard one in 2 decades, and it's the first time, once again, that a president with a sitting majority in Parliament is re-elected. It happened for Jacques Chirac, for François Mitterrand, but in Parliament, the opposition was in power. So you had this French-style cohabitation at the time, which probably helped their re-election. Emmanuel Macron becomes the first one not to need that to be re-elected. The polls were correct, let's put it this way. They predicted such a victory. We'll just go back and look at those figures from our partner Ipsos. Emmanuel Macron scoring 58.2% of the votes, according to our estimates, versus 41.2% for Marine Le Pen. Let's just remember that in 2017, Emmanuel Macron earned 66% of the votes versus 34% of the votes.
It's 9 p.m. in Paris. It's election night. You're watching France 24. It was exactly 1 hour ago when the polls closed.